Yeah, thanks, Cahirla. And my first question, I'd ask you to be fairly brief if you don't mind in the responses. I'm very conscious of the need for the homeowners to, particularly, and the victims to have their say today about the issues with the scheme. But my question is, I found your presentation, and thank you, Damien, and thank you, Keelan. I'm not surprised, but I'm very alarmed in relation to your frank outlining of the fact that your members were struggling to get insurance, the limitations of that insurance. Clearly the insurance industry doesn't have confidence in IS 465. So, you know, this whole scheme, the government have said it's billions of taxpayers' money, is based on a standard that is not fit for purpose. And you've made that clear today, and you said the opinion of some engineers, but I would say to you, most engineers that I'm interacting do not believe it's fit for purpose. Can you just maybe elaborate on that, about, as professional engineers, what your concerns are and why we're continuing to insist that homeowners adhere to this standard when it's not fit for purpose?
Thank you, Deputy. I suppose the key issue is the standard when it was written focused on mica and pyrite as the mechanism of deterioration. Since then, and as you know, samples were taken from homes and sent to laboratories for testing, some of the results had come back inconclusive. So strictly speaking, if you're testing against the standard, you know, those homeowners are left in a limbo, because it couldn't be said with certainty that the deterioration of their properties was caused by the causes outlined in the standard. And then this gave rise to, I suppose, exploration of other mechanisms of deterioration, which, you know, other people here have alluded to. And I think as we move forward, I understand there's research going on with the GSI and NSAI, and we need to progress that and get that conclusion as quickly as possible. I think some properties are now being in the process of being demolished and remediated. And I think that gives a living laboratory where we can actually take samples from those properties, see exactly what the mechanism of deterioration is, and then I think once based on that knowledge, the standard can be amended and other mechanisms can be included.
Yeah, just for the record, the members of your organisation, professional engineers, have recommended that over 200 homes be demolished in Donegal, and those recommendations have not been agreed with and have been referred to the Housing Agency. That's the mess we're in, where we have engineers who can't agree as to how we resolve this, but homeowners are supposed to work with the scheme. Now, the next question is for the homeowners. Thank you all for your presentations, and obviously it's harrowing listening to it. So we are going to be having the Department of Housing in later on, and they are stressing, as the Minister's stressing, about the consultation with the stakeholders and how they took on board so much. So can you just maybe guide us as to what questions, what are the immediate concerns that we should prioritise when the Department of Housing in, and what questions would you put to them if you were here today, if you could do the same?
I'll start with that. The first thing I mean, due to time constraints, we've tried to concentrate on the key issues. The first thing, the 100%. We hear over and over and again, it's 100%. It is categorically not 100%. The government's 100% is 100%, and then there's a big parenthesis after that, a big bracket, except X, Y, and Z. It's not 100%. And that has to be addressed, because as we've outlined, there is almost no one going through this process already who is not looking for additional finance. And we're not talking about insignificant amounts of money. We're talking about tens of thousands of euros. I gave the example of the homeowner who is house of just over 1,200 square feet. That is a real life example of somebody going through the building process right now. It is as current as I can get it. It is real. And that actually is a generous, because it doesn't include some other costs that they've taken on as well. So the 100%, the finances have to be bottomed out. It has to be bottomed out, or you have to come in and do an end-to-end scheme. You have to be able to allow people to move forward, because at the moment, people are cobbling things together, looking for extra finance. We heard last week about the issues with the banks, etc. That is a roadblock. If that is not resolved, it will continue to be a roadblock, especially for those who have very, very limited access to savings or being able to raise a loan, for example. They are absolutely trapped, as colleagues in other areas said. They are utterly, what do they do? What is the answer from the Department of Housing for somebody who's looking at maybe 30, 40, 50k shortfall and they do not have access to finance, yet they cannot progress through? Again, with regard to vulnerable people, we have people in situations, they are literally trapped in their home because there are roadblocks that will not allow them to progress. We know that alternative accommodation is an issue. For lots of people, finding accommodation is an issue anyway. But if you've got any kind of special or complex need, it is almost impossible. Therefore, they are trapped.
Thank you. I'm going to move now to Deputy.
Here, I omitted to do something. I should acknowledge the presence of the redress focus groups in Donegal. There's 2 members here in the audience.
Thanks,
so I omitted to do that.
Deputy Higgins, please. 5.